There has been a lot of different storylines to follow during this offseason. Whether it was the Ricardo Pepi saga, expansion side Charlotte FC news, or the acquisition of Lorenzo Insigne to Toronto, the past few months have been anything but short of news. But in my opinion, there was a pretty big development in the American soccer landscape that came and went without a lot of coverage. The development I'm talking about is MLS Next Pro. I know, what a weird name, and honestly, what is that logo? That font? I know MLS gets a lot of stuff wrong with their marketing, but what is that? Is it trying to be hip? Is it trying to fit this young player vibe? I have no clue, and honestly, I'm getting off track now. MLS Next Pro is the next stage in the development of soccer here in the United States. MLS Next Pro, or MNP as I'll refer to it, is basically going to be a new reserve league for MLS teams. Now at first glance, I get it. I'm raving about a development league, but trust me, it's going to be a game changer in how we see talent brought up in this league. MLS Next Pro is going to be where MLS clubs can run a second team and develop younger players. But I guess before I get into all of that, let's take a look at how these MLS clubs were developing players prior to this announcement. We're taking this way back to start with, all the way back to 2010 when the United Soccer Leagues, or USL, announced the creation of USL Pro, which was a merger of their two previous leagues, USL 1 and USL 2. I know it's a bit confusing here, but stay with me. United Soccer League's plan at this time was to create a league that would be sanctioned as the official second division of soccer in the United States, with the first division already being MLS. Around this same time, Major League Soccer was running something called the MLS Reserve League, which was, well, basically what it sounds like. The MLS Reserve League. Now, I'm going to fast forward a few years to 2013, when MLS and USL announced a multi-year partnership and eventually a full merger where these MLS reserve teams would play in USL Pro. This partnership would double the size of the USL Pro by 2015, and then the league would become the USL. At this time, not every MLS team had a direct lower division team in the USL, but some teams either had one or were affiliated with an independent USL club. Eventually, in 2017, the USL would officially be given this second division status in the United States, and the league would undergo another rebrand to the USL Championship. This brings us up to the 2020 season, where the USL Championship consisted of 9 teams that were 100% owned by MLS clubs. So you're talking about Atlanta United 2, Union 2, LA Galaxy 2, etc. When MLS clubs had younger players who were ready to play professionally but not quite at the MLS level yet, they would be able to send their talent to feeder clubs for game time in the USL Championship against other MLS 2 teams and independent clubs like Phoenix Rising, Louisville City, Indy 11, and a whole assortment of other lower division clubs who have not been given the glorified MLS status. That's how the development of young talent was. The few clubs with lower division teams would be able to send their players to them. And if they didn't have an affiliated team, which was a good chunk, well then they'd just send their players to whoever would take them. For example, Columbus Crew sent Miguel Berry to San Diego Loyal after drafting him in 2020 so he could get his game time. And I'm going to refer to this story again later on. Now, with the introduction of MLS Next Pro, all clubs in MLS have an option to host a second division team under their own branding in their own city. This also completes the pipeline of MLS from having young players and academies playing in MLS Next, then the option of a professional second division in MNP, and then the top flight MLS. So now that you have a background of what MLS Next Pro is, let's dive into what this league is going to be and how it can improve the talent coming through this country. For its inaugural year, the league will have 21 clubs, 19 of which are in MLS, and another one is expansion side St. Louis, who will be joining MLS next season. 9 MLS clubs will not be represented in 2022, but 8 of those 9 will be joining in 2023. So that leaves us with only one MLS club that will not be participating in MNP for at least the next 2 seasons. Montreal have not decided if they'll be joining the league, stating they will closely monitor the activities to decide if this solution aligns with their philosophy. Now, there is still one team that I haven't mentioned who will be in MNP, and that's Rochester, New York FC. Now, this is a weird one, and it really confuses me onto why they're going to be a part of this league. Rochester, New York FC is a club that was formerly known as the Rochester Rhinos, an esteemed club first founded in 1996. Well, they went on hiatus in 2018 and then were bought by Leicester City striker Jamie Vardy. They then underwent this drastic rebrand and now they're playing in the MLS 2 league. I really don't get it. Why would a professional independent club want to join a league where they will just be playing the reserves from a higher division? Maybe it's just me, but if I were kickstarting my own club, I'd want to join a league that's making its own waves and trying to become its own identity like the USL Championship. I definitely would not want to join a league where I'm not even competing against the club's first teams. Like, is Rochester's goals just to feed MLS clubs or what? Because if you're participating in a development league with no one to develop for, I'm just confused on what their end goal is. I can't even imagine how their fan base feels. Every week you're up against some insert name 2 club, and it just doesn't really seem exciting. Maybe in the future that'll change because it says that more independent clubs will be joining MLS Next Pro after 2023. So that means there's more clubs that are trying to be MLS development squads. This is where this product gets a bit wonky for me. Is MLS Next Pro trying to have its own development league, or is it just trying to remake what the USL Championship was? Because I thought with this MNP league, we were ending that. After the 2022 USL Championship season, there will no longer be any MLS affiliates in the USL. So why add independent clubs to MLS Next Pro? Now, how will this affect MLS? And also, how will this affect the USL Championship? Because they're also pretty involved in this process. Well, for the USL, they will finally be able to break apart from the stigma of playing MLS 2 teams in their league, which in my opinion makes USL a more distinguished entity. You don't want your top clubs playing against MLS 2 teams with crowds of 1,000 max. That's not something you'd want to promote your league. Hey, come on down and watch Atlanta United 2 take on Red Bulls 2 with 800 people in attendance. Yeah, I don't think that's pulling anybody into the USL. I understand when the USL first had this partnership with MLS, it was needed to sustain the league. But the USL has a foundation now, with some really intriguing clubs and atmospheres. So I think this move will help make the USL more competitive and a more desirable league to follow. For MLS, I think this is perfect, because now you're going to have a real professional environment for all of your clubs to develop top talents. Going back to Miguel Berry, when he was drafted with the Crew, they had nowhere for him to get playing time. So they sent him across the country for experience. He did play in San Diego in college, so he was used to the environment, but he still wasn't training with the Crew. He wasn't being taught the Crew's tactics, and he probably didn't feel like he was part of the organization. Obviously, everything is working out for him now, but how helpful would it have been for him to stay in Columbus and be brought up through their philosophy? I know I'm referring to the Crew and Crew 2 a lot here, but it's the team I follow, so it's the squad I see the most information about. But 2022 Crew draft pick Chris Donovan said this regarding the opportunity to train with the Crew first team. I don't think it can be stated enough how important it is to be around people who play at the highest level, because you learn a lot from not only playing, but by watching them closely. This is vital in the production of top talent, and now because of MLS Next Pro, teams will be able to put their draft picks right into their system and see what they can bring to the team. I think this makes the draft so much more viable, because let's be honest, MLS draft talent is not usually ready for MLS game time right away, so they can come into the club and work with the team and easily be called upon if they can make an impact on the first team. With the professional environment that MNP can provide, more talent will be showcased, and with a country as big as the United States, any chance for more players to get some light could result in the production of the next big star. It's not really the case on if the United States has top talent, it's more about how can US soccer set up the right programs for the talent in this country to get opportunities. I also like the fact that there is now a whole pathway that players can visualize that MLS could help them meet their goals. Players can start in their club's MLS academy, Then when they reach a certain level, well, then there's now a professional environment in MLS Next Pro where the player can take the next step. If a situation like this existed before, not that it's a bad thing necessarily, but maybe we would have seen less young Americans go over to Europe in their early teenage years to find a high level of play to develop. I think of a guy like Weston McKennie here. McKennie started playing in FC Dallas's academy at 10 years old. He played there until he was 17, when he then declined the option of signing a homegrown contract with Dallas, and instead signed for Schalke in the Bundesliga. If he did sign that homegrown deal, he probably would have got very minimal game time. But if FC Dallas had a reserve team playing at a high professional level, then he could have stayed in Dallas and developed more before heading over to Germany. Now, I'm in no way saying McKennie made the wrong decision. At the time, with no development team after the academy, he made the right move and it's worked out great for him. But after FC Dallas lost this star prospect for free, they created a second team and put them in USL to create a full pathway to the MLS first team. This is exactly how Ricardo Pepi was developed. Pepi is a product from Weston McKennie choosing Germany over MLS. Pepi started off in FC Dallas's academy. After succeeding there, he became the first ever signing of Dallas's USL side, North Texas SC, the team that FC Dallas knew they had to create to fill the void they had between their academy and the first team. After having a great time with the USL side, he was finally ready for MLS. He got his call up, and now he's off to Germany with $20 million coming the other way. FC Dallas earned nothing from their development of McKennie, but with Pepi and their USL side, they were able to cash out and can now use that money to improve their club. I believe this scenario is enough substance to think that with MLS Next Pro making it easier to develop a second team, we will see more talent coming through this system. So I like what I'm seeing from MLS Next Pro. I think USL will benefit, MLS will benefit, and younger talent will have a more complete pathway to getting scouted and making it through the footballing ladder. Now, they could have easily done better with their marketing and presentation, but MLS has to MLS sometimes. Please feel free to give me your opinions on this subject in the comments below, and until next time, thanks for watching.